Okay, intro. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, or wherever you are. Good time wherever it is you are. I am here today to finally talk about Japan. I'm back home and still a little bit jet lagged, still a little bit loopy, but excited to share about the trip, which was amazing. And this is a hat that I got at DisneySea, which is kind of like the California Adventure of Disneyland in Tokyo. So, and we have someone from Japan watching. So, and I also want to show you this cute little hoodie that I got. It has these little ears on it. So I got quite a bit of clothing in Japan, including the most expensive shoes that I've ever worn before. But those are downstairs. But I have basically put together some B-roll from the trip. Not really in any specific order because I'm still working on editing the videos that I want to show you guys. But I figured we would go live and talk about it. I'm going to lower you down a little bit here. But yeah, so we got to Japan on April 7th and we got home on Thursday of last week, which was very weird because flying there, we, time traveled forward. Flying home, we time traveled backwards. So we left on Thursday evening and got back on Thursday evening, which was an incredible mind F word. It traveling that far, that many time zones. I'm very susceptible to jet lag, and I'm not going to lie, the transition home has been quite hard. Particularly yesterday, flying back home, we had to fly through LAX. And so I was up for 26 hours straight, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, it was a lot. And it's more so that the time difference can be a little bit hard to adjust to. But so let me show you one of the things that we did the day before we left. There were a ton of animal cafes in Tokyo, actually all over Japan, but Tokyo has a lot of them. Animal cafes, meaning you can basically, get a drink, coffee or whatever, but that's really not what it's for. It's to spend 30 minutes or so with an animal of your choice. They have hedgehogs, they have capybaras, all sorts of animals. My favorite animal of the animal cafes that we did is the owl. And so I paid extra to do this private owl experience. And it was really interesting because this owl cafe was actually run by a couple who has over 40 owls, and the husband used to do wedding photography. And so they had these amazingly trained owls. I mean, this was the biggest one, and I was a little bit worried about him going on my shoulder, but they had him on my shoulder and taking photos. And that was a really cool experience because they offered the option to pay extra to come before they opened and basically have the entire experience to yourselves. So this was the shot of the day. These are 7 owls on me, and I've never felt happier with so many owls on me. Although one of them did end up pooping on me. We thought that I was clear, but when I went to the bathroom afterwards on my skirt, I realized that I had been hit. I had been attacked. However, I think it's supposedly good luck if a bird poops on you. So hopefully it is. But these are some of the owls, and it's just interesting. I've been to a cat cafe in Seattle, but they really had animal cafes for basically everything. So if I go back, I want to do like the Dogecoin dog. They had one of those cafes. And yeah, Ross says that he likes the laminated postcards. I thought that was a really nice kind of parting gift. It's like, it's great to have photos on your phone, but to actually have something tangible to walk away with. Here's one of me and my boyfriend. And so it was just really sweet. He also gave us a little owl calendar. So it was really cool. And this is just one of many things, but I guess I should start rolling the tape here. And one thing I'll say is, I might play this video and then pause it a few times just to explain to you where we were, what we were doing. Obviously, if you're interested in the trip, you're on this live stream. This is not going to be a space related talk. This is about the past, almost 3 weeks in Japan. Once again, we have someone already saying, let's talk about space. This is a live stream about Japan. This is a question and answer session. If you don't want to talk about Japan, then you're in the wrong live stream. So let's get it started. So here we are. So this was in Kyoto, which tell me if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this was when I rented a kimono. And so I was surprised to be able to do this for quite cheap, actually. It only cost us less than $60. They also did my hair, which I would not have been able to do by myself. And they also gave, that went pretty quickly there. They also gave us some of the sandals to walk in, which were made harder to walk in because they also had you wear socks with them. So some people were like, well, you're not supposed to take big steps. As you can see, I'm holding them in my hand, but we were trying to walk to, a local shrine area to take some photos. And here is a look at Tokyo. This is from the second hotel that we stayed in Tokyo. Kyoto. Yeah. So it sounds like I'm saying Kyoto, right? So some people have been asking, okay, well, where should I stay in Tokyo? We only stayed in 2 hotels, but I far prefer the first hotel to the second hotel. The first one, my boyfriend booked. The second one I booked, and it had high ratings. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't much cheaper, and the room felt even smaller. And it had this nice rooftop view, which you're seeing here. But the first one was called Hotel Gracery, and that actually was totally Godzilla themed. So if you're a Godzilla fan, you're going to want to stay at the Hotel Gracery. They actually had a giant Godzilla head that overlooks Tokyo. You can see it from the ground, but it was under construction or had some sort of a repair going on when we were there. So I could only see it from the street. We weren't allowed on the balcony. But it was much better, I think, in my opinion. So if you guys want me to write some of these things out, let me know. But Hotel Gracery, out of the 2 hotels that we stayed in, I would prefer. But what you're looking at here is a view from the Grand Bell Hotel. And let's see, and this is so their rooftop bar. So this, you might be thinking to yourself, why are you showing me video of Venice? And this was actually at DisneySea. So DisneySea is like the California adventure of Tokyo. And we did DisneySea before we did Disneyland in Tokyo. DisneySea was really cool because California Adventure, really just focuses on California. And DisneySea, that's spelled SEA, like sea, the ocean, actually focused on, more of the world, which I thought was really cool, particularly this ride that you're seeing part of the line right now. This was called Soarin'. So as you know, in California, maybe you don't know, they have Soarin' over California, which is like a gliding ride. They even have some scents that they spray in the air, and it's about California. But this version of Soarin' took you all over the globe. And so I thought that was really cool to sort of integrate more than just California, or they could have done, let's say, just Japan. And so here's some more of those lines. I don't know if I need to turn this down. One thing that was interesting to me getting into DisneySea, they didn't even look in my fanny pack. It seemed like the security for Disneyland Tokyo was more strict. However, neither of them had that, biometric fingerprint scan that you have, at least in Florida. I think they also have it in California. So it's interesting that different Disneylands have different policies. However, you might also be surprised to learn that Disneyland does not run the Disneyland in Tokyo. So it's actually run by a company called Oriental Land, I believe. And so that they're making bank. One of the videos that I'm going to be working on, by the way, is the fact that going to Disneyland in Tokyo, has ruined Disneyland for me. The and I can say this confidently because we flew through LA, and so right before we went to Japan, we did a day trip to Anaheim Disneyland in California, which I've grown up going to, but having that, comparison side by side with Disneyland in California fresh in my mind, Tokyo beats it in every way, which is a little bit sad because Japan is pretty far away. But I'm going to be explaining in my video why I think that, that's a big claim to make, particularly if you're a Disney fan. I'm sure I'm going to be pissing off some of the Disney adults here. But part of the reason that I think that is because much of Japan in general is cleaner. So it's cleaner at the Disneyland. People are much more polite. Everything seems to run more efficiently, including the food. They also had something where you could pay extra. There's Mickey, the man of the hour. You could pay extra to basically cut the line. So not exactly like a fast pass, but actually where you could just pay for a premium access, which they have in Florida, for example. But it seemed that no one was using this. And so almost every single ride, we got to cut the line, which was crazy, and go on like all of the premier rides with basically no line. And one of the reasons why this was interesting to me is that even just to get into Tokyo Disneyland, it's about $60. So it's, less than half the price to get into Disneyland in California, which is absurd. So you're already saving money just to get into the park. And these tickets to cut the line were basically $10 a person. So even if you do a couple rides, you're still not at just the entry price to get into California. Plus, you're probably going to have to drive a car and park somewhere in California. So it's going to run you even more money. And it was strange to me that basically not a lot of people were taking advantage of this. And I don't know if it's because they couldn't afford like $10 a person, but I did feel like a little bit bad being able to fast track the lines. Some of those lines for the Beauty and the Beast ride, it was like 100 minutes. And if you haven't been on the Beauty and the Beast ride, it was released in 2020 at Disneyland in Tokyo. So not DisneySea, Disneyland. It's by far the best ride I've ever been on. Now it's a newer ride. It was released in 2020. But again, that line was 100 minutes and we got to bypass all of that basically. So that was that was quite worth it in my opinion. And so here is the Jungle Cruise. And one thing that I found interesting, and I actually got a couple videos of that, but the reason that I was getting so many of these videos is that this was like the most animated woman that I had seen throughout the trip. And I was watching some reels and TikToks about culture in Japan, and some of this Japanese guy was saying that, well, women aren't supposed to be funny. Typically that's not attractive. And this lady who did our Jungle Cruise was very animated and I could tell she was funny. Now, could I understand her? Hell no. But she was like acting out and it was like the most expressive I'd seen basically like any woman be on the trip. So that was just, I don't know, interesting to me. And also interesting to like be on the Jungle Cruise that I've been on many times before and not know what she was saying, but being able to understand the story she was telling based on her gestures and her expressions and, pointing at certain things. So it was really interesting going there, not only just to see the differences in the parks, but also like try and understand the narrations and realize that I don't know a lick of Japanese. I know a lot more Spanish. And so it gives me so much more respect too for the people in Japan that speak really good English. Like, honestly, I'm embarrassed how little Japanese I know. And, I guess that I think they start studying it in school very young, but I was extremely impressed with how much English so many people knew. And, people that weren't in dedicated like hospitality jobs or something. So yeah, so this was fun. This Jungle Cruise. This lady was making people laugh, so I assume she's funny. And here was something interesting. Um, this was the parade during the day at Disneyland. And instead of Mickey Mouse being the star of the show, it was Donald Duck. And I asked my friend who is Japanese, who I met up with, an alien space fan, who's a woman of all people. I don't have a lot of women watch my channel. I'm not sexist. And she said that she was actually confused why Donald Duck was the star of the show. So I think this is a newer thing that they're doing. But it was really weird to see everyone obsess over Donald Duck. I just never thought I like Pluto more than Donald Duck, if I'm being honest with you. But this was kind of a fun parade here. So we have Donald Duck as the star of the hour. And I wish I could find the song for you, because there was this funny like rap verse in English, and it was like, Donald Duck, he's the man of the hour, he's the king of showbiz. It was really funny. It sounded like Chat GPT wrote that part, but so here we are. There's Daisy Duck, and here we were going on this ride called Baymax. I haven't seen that movie with the big, like, fluffy marshmallow looking guy. I don't even know what it's called. Maybe it's called Big. But this was a very twisty and turny ride, and it was supposed to make you happy. And so this was one of the premier rides. It's basically like bumper cars that sway back and forth and whiplash you. And the idea, or at least how they translated it in English, is that if you're happy, you're healthy. So this was the healthy ride, which I was like, I feel a little bit motion sickness. I don't really feel that healthy here. Big Hero 6, Paranoid Dream. Thank you for filling me in. And thank you for the super chat from Bimmer Geezer, $50 on this Sunday. That does help me, by the way, because I spent a lot of money on the trip. But Bimmer Geezer says, so glad you are back. A doctor friend of mine and his wife spent 2 years in Japan while in the Air Force and loved the country. Everyone that I've talked to that's been to Japan or particularly lived in Japan loves Japan. And I knew all this before going into it. So it definitely lives up to the expectations. If I could live there for a year, 100% I would. It was very sad to leave. I missed my cats, but other than that, it's like, and Starship launches, if we could have that opportunity, my boyfriend and I agree we would do it. So thank you for the super chat, and I'm glad that you get to hang out with me as I show you some video of me trying not to barf on Jonathan. And so here we were. This was part of that line for the Beauty and Beast ride. And I was very glad to cut that line. You can kind of hear me, and you can just see we're just flying through it. So I don't know why, at $10 a person, maybe that's a lot of money. I don't know. If anyone knows more about like Japan, maybe you can let me know why people also weren't using the premium passes, because I just think paying $10 on top of a $60 ticket, which again is not nearly as much as you'd pay to get into California. Just crazy to wait 100 minutes. And a lot of people were waiting in several lines. Let's see. So Barney says, you have any regrets? Something you didn't do or go to see? I don't regret this. However, if I would have done it differently, I would not have spent 3 nights in Hiroshima. We spent 3 nights there, and maybe this is going to sound weird, but the first day we did the museum. Obviously, seeing the A-bomb dome and seeing remnants from the bombing, and inside of that museum, if you're like a very sensitive person, it's very sad. I mean, it should be sad to everyone, but it really kind of put me in a dark mood. And so staying in Hiroshima for 3 nights, and then we had an earthquake while we were there, which was not very fun for me. I think I would have, maybe made it a day trip or just stayed 1 night. We only stayed 2 nights in Mount Fuji, so I would have maybe stayed less time overnight in Hiroshima and then stayed more in Mount Fuji. So that's something I would have done differently. Sorry, I'm reading some of the comments here. So I wouldn't call that a regret. I'm glad that I went to Hiroshima, but I don't know if I'm ever going to go back. It's really crazy, considering it happened almost 80 years ago, but just kind of the energy there is, and it should be, what happened was kind of unthinkable. And, so yeah, I was happy to get out of there. Not in a mean way, but it was, it was heavy. It was heavy. If you've ever been to like the Anne Frank Annex in Europe, that also, I went when I was like 9, and that was really hard as a 9-year-old. So yeah, I think I would have spent more time. We loved Kyoto as well. If you're going to go to Japan, obviously you're probably going to fly into Tokyo, and then you really definitely have to go to Kyoto. Aside from that, it depends on how much time you have, but those two are for sure where you need to go. So I'm going to keep playing this video. Let's talk about something happy like Disneyland and cutting the line. Ross wants to know, do you think it's because Japanese culture is to be patient and wait in line? That's what I've heard, but man, those were some long lines. So yeah, the Beauty and the Beast ride was interesting. It was like super realistic animatronics. And even one of the interesting things too is like a lot of the lines actually had, integrated sort of attractions within the lines. So while you're waiting in line to get on the Beauty and the Beast ride, they have you go into this room and you see like a hologram of, or actually these are both animatronics, but at some point you do see a hologram. And it was just really interesting to me that so many of the lines kind of tricked you and made you feel like you weren't waiting in line because they had these attractions. So I thought that was really smart and really thoughtful, because I don't think you see that at every theme park for sure. Someone from Japan, I believe this is someone from Japan, says, by the way, your video asking Japanese people about SpaceX and Elon Musk on the street was so funny. I thought that, I'm here with Takai in space. She is covering space news in Japan and said she's really inspired by me. So I had someone who could speak Japanese, and I was like, we should ask people if they know what Starship is. And it was interesting because a lot of people knew about X. They were using X, so they associated Elon with X, but they didn't really know anything about SpaceX or Starship. So, that'll change eventually. Here's some more of the Disneyland. We have some of the boats during the day. And then their like light shows at night were absolutely crazy. It was like so much magic. You hear Disneyland is magical, and as an adult, that can sound a little bit cliche, but it was actually very magical there. Definitely well worth it. And it makes me not really want to go to any more Disneylands in the States. They sound kind of miserable compared to the Tokyo version, which sucks to say, but it's how I feel. And so, okay. So here is another must-do activity. And you can do this if you go to Kyoto. You don't have to stay overnight in Nara. You can make it a day trip, but you have to go to Nara. You have to go to Nara. I had actually heard of the word Nara. Alt J, I don't know if you listen to them. They have a song called Nara. And so I had been listening to this song since 2017. I didn't really know much about Nara other than the fact that there's like these deer everywhere. And so I'm thinking, well, are they everywhere? Are we going to miss them? No, they are everywhere. And they're very well accustomed to the tourists because there's all these vendors selling these little deer crackers. And so you're going to see me right here interacting with the deer. And let's see, do I have crackers at that point? But this was incredible. Like one of the best experiences of my life. We had no shortage of experiences that just, made me so happy. And feeding the deer, um, hanging out with the owls was also magical. Going to Disneyland, it was hard to leave. Let's put it that way. But yeah, going to Nara is 100% worth it. The Here's me with my friend. The deer crackers are quite cheap, and once you start feeding the deer, I actually got bit by one of the deer on my thigh, not far from my femur scar. So I was like, whoa there, buddy. You're getting a little bit too close. And so we ended up buying, I don't know, 15 of the deer cracker packages. And I think they cut you off at a certain point. But those deer, if you have crackers in your hand, you might need to start running, because they are aggressive. Ross says, how big is Nara? A big city or a smaller town? I would definitely say it's a smaller town. I don't know how many people, but like I said, it can be done within a day. We were only there for a few hours, but it's 100% worth going. It's so cool to like be up close and personal with this deer. Look at this guy. Some of them were like really chill like this, and then some of them were maybe a little bit more spooky or kind of feral. They weren't quite, if you didn't have a cracker, they didn't want to be pet. Let's put it that way. But then some of them were really chill like that guy. So here's just some video, by the way. This was on, I think, my second night there. This is just some B-roll walking through Tokyo. So now we're back in Tokyo. Again, these videos don't go in order, but I thought that I would play something because you don't want to look at my old mean mug this whole time. So yeah, it was just, the convenience stores, they're a thing. A lot of people talk about that before you go to Japan. Now, granted, I didn't like everything at the convenience stores. I'm kind of picky when it comes to meat. And one of the interesting things, too, is there was a lot more of an option of pork than chicken most places. So we went to this noodle place that my boyfriend particularly fell in love with. It was a ramen place. And I got something called akura soba, which didn't have any of the broth. You actually put mayonnaise and vinegar in it, which may sound gross to you, but it was actually really good. And they had pork. And so I would use my English to Japanese translator and write, can you make my order without pork? And then hold it up. And they would always be confused. They're like, why don't you want the pork? And I'm like, I don't like pork. And so that's something to keep in mind. There's a lot more pork. And the thing too is I did try the chicken a couple places. It was very, it was like chicken thigh and kind of darker meat, kind of fatty. And again, it's on me. I'm picky about meat, but I was eating a lot more of the like Japanese sort of mochi and desserts and stuff, which were very good. Another thing that has become my kryptonite, that I actually went to the Japanese market here in Austin my first day back and got some, although I've already run out of it, is the milk tea. So they have this royal milk tea that is just, it's so good. It's not too sweet. It's like slightly milky. It's amazing. So if you haven't tried Japanese milk tea, it's not boba either. It's not like, boba with the tapioca balls. It's in a bottle or in a can, and it is very good. So yeah, this is some more of that video, and let's see if I can go back a little bit so you can see it up close here. So Tokyo is pretty lively at night. The climate, how was the climate? The climate was great. I would say that we went at probably the best time that you could go. Again, we were there from April 7th until April 25th. And also keep in mind, we ended up extending our trip. So we were only supposed to be there until the 20th, but we decided a few days in, hey, we got to change these plane tickets because April 20th isn't enough time here. And so the climate was amazing. We got there when there were still cherry blossoms, and we stayed there long enough to see the cherry blossoms fall. And so I'm going to pause it for a second so I can answer this question. Did you plan all your excursions, or was it part of an itinerary with a travel company? I'm hoping to go next year. Hi from London. Hey, Gordon, this is a great question. We did not use any travel company. And what might even surprise you more is that we only planned our flight there and back, which we changed the flight back, extended it on the fly, but we only planned the first hotel. So we planned, okay, we're going to stay for sure 4 nights in Tokyo, and then we're going to see what we want to do. Because we've heard that some people say you can't even see all of Tokyo in less than 2 weeks. So we didn't know if we were going to want to stay for a few days. And we kind of did this because of our experience in Europe, which was going through the different cities. We would have spent more time in Venice, but we didn't know that until we were forced to leave because of making reservations, one after the other. So we had booked Tokyo for 4 nights. I think on the second to last night, we're like, okay, I guess we can, since we're going to come back to fly out of Tokyo, let's go to Kyoto. And then we kind of planned everything on the fly. So that, I think, would make a lot of people uncomfortable. I think a lot of people like to have some certainty in their plans. But to me, the magic is in the spontaneity and saying, you know what? I love Kyoto. I want to stay here, for even longer. Or I think that we should go to Mount Fuji. And that way, you have time to hit multiple cities. And that was one thing. We actually traveled through a good portion of Japan. I didn't know how far we were going to go. Hiroshima is quite far from Tokyo. And so, we didn't make it all the way to Nagasaki. We didn't go all the way up north to Sapporo. But we saw most of the big areas that everyone recommends. So we went to Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima, Mount Fuji, and then back to Tokyo. And again, when we were in Kyoto, we went to Nara. So I calculated it. We stayed in 5 hotels in Japan, and we walked 185 miles throughout Japan. I had several nights during the second week where my feet were cramping nonstop, not just at night, although they were cramping really bad at night, but at rest when we would be eating at a restaurant, my feet were like pins and needles cramping, and it was freaking me out because I walk a lot at home, but this was next level walking. So there were certain parts of the trip where I really felt overexhausted, fatigue was stacked, starting to have various things that were bothering me. And so it's been kind of nice to be home, just in the sense that I needed to slow down a little bit. It was a lot, which maybe sounds crazy. But 185 miles throughout that time span. I calculated it by tracking all of the miles on the phone, but it was a lot. It was a lot. And so, you could choose to do the trip that way. You could choose not to. But I think part of the reason we walked so much is because we would take the subways, but then walk, to and from our hotel, to and from whatever we wanted to get to when we got off the subway. It was just a lot of walking. So make sure you have good shoes. And thank you for another super chat from Bimmer Geezer. Did you take the train mostly? If so, how were they? We ended up taking the subways a lot. And aside from just the, basic commuter lines, like the JR lines, we also took the Shinkansens. Now, you might not know what that is because I didn't until the trip. That is the, colloquial term for a bullet, or we call it bullet train. And so there was no signage for bullet train. It's called a Shinkansen. It's the ultra uber fast way to get from place to place. And you should definitely do that as well while you're there. But their public transit is amazing. And, I posted about how when we got in, we did take a taxi from the airport to our hotel. And that post unfortunately blew up for people to make fun of me. But for the rest of the trip, we did take, public transportation. And one thing that I will recommend to you guys, if you want to go, and this is so worth it, we didn't realize this until we got there, is we were spending a lot of time getting individual tickets. So we would, go and try to find out, okay, which line are we taking? Where are we trying to go to? How many yen do we have to put in as coins? You don't got to do all that. You go to your Apple Wallet. Now, this is assuming you have an iPhone. If you don't, you're screwed. Sorry, I don't know how to help you. But if you have an iPhone and you have Apple Wallet, you're going to add a transit card. That's in the top right corner. There's a plus sign, add transit card. You're going to load one of the 3 transit cards. I picked this guy, the Icoca. And you're going to load money onto that, which is going to translate into yen. And you can see, well, maybe you can see, sorry, I don't know why it's blurry. We use this a ton. So all you would have to do is scan it and immediately you're in and out of the station. And there's like no delay on it. Their systems are so sophisticated, but this absolutely came in handy. This made our lives so much easier. We didn't have to stand there trying to get the tickets and looking at, what number, and I don't want to mess that up. So definitely load your transit card. One thing, you may try to load your transit card and it's not taking your Visa. And you try another Visa and it's not taking that Visa. That happened to me. Didn't take my Apple Cash either. The only card I could get it to work on was my MasterCard. So a lot of Reddit threads say, yes, certain cards, they're not going to work. So you might need to try a few, but it's worth it to get the right one because it's going to save you a lot of time and you'll look like everyone else. And so they won't think that you're just a dummy, a dumb tourist. But yeah, the trains were amazing. And I was surprised too, because I get car sick really easily. And I did not feel car sick on the subways or the Shinkansens, the bullet trains, which, by the way, they feel fast, but they're not like crazy. At least how they feel on your body. They are crazy how fast they go. Sorry, I'm still a little bit out of it, if I'm being honest with you. So here's some video on the ground. This was in Tokyo, and they have these like arcades everywhere, like the claw toys. I never saw anyone win a toy. They had like the most weak like claw grippers, and they might grab the toy, but every single one would drop it. And like, I don't know why, like, I don't even know how they stayed in business. To me, they were like all scams. I never saw anyone win a toy, but they were very popular. Same with those like turnstile toy dispensers. So I got a few of the toys. They're basically like, packaged, and you can twist the dial and get little toys. They have some interesting things there. They have photo booths. They have the karaoke bars. We actually surprisingly did not do karaoke while we were there, but we did a lot of other stuff that was amazing. And yes, thank you for correcting me. This is Shinjuku District in Tokyo. And right there, you can see the Godzilla that I was talking about. This is the Hotel Gracery. It's next to the Toho Cinemas, which we went to the movie theater in Japan twice. And that was really fun just to see, what do they serve at the movie theater? And it was funny because the first one that we went to, we asked if they had any movies in English or English subtitles. And so they showed us like Oppenheimer and stuff, which we'd already seen. And then the attendant came back and said, oh, there's this, Korean movie. And so we bought tickets for it, and it was in Korean with Japanese subtitles. So we left, and people were, I think, laughing at us. And then we had to get a different movie. We saw The First Omen, which was in English with Japanese subtitles, and it was all right. I would never have watched it otherwise, but it was a fun experience nonetheless, to just, eat their caramel corn. They offer you can get half and half salted and caramel corn. And I will say there has been a bit of a taste bud adjustment since coming back home. A lot of the foods there are very mild compared to here. I will say too, my acid reflux or heartburn has been even worse coming back home. And I ran out of my omeprazole while I was there. So for the last week, I didn't have any of my heartburn medication. And then I came back home and I got back on my heartburn medication and I was having mad heartburn. which like my medication always works. So I'm like, dude, like, is that how shitty American food is? That it's like literally like because I've like adjusted to Japanese food, which is way less sodium, like almost no sodium on certain things. Like if you get fries, for example, there's like no salt on them. Or like even their sweets, it's like way more subtle. And so like there's definitely like a reverse adjustment that I've had to do. And it makes me just, I don't know, kind of like kind of grossed out by some of the food here, or kind of like just perplexed, like what is in our food and why. Yeah, I was reading another girl who went to Japan who's gluten free in the United States. Well, she could eat gluten in Japan. So I'm like, what's going on here? Like literally, what is going on with the food in the United States? I don't know. Yeah. Peaks and Pokes says American food is poison. Like it's honestly made me kind of like skeptical and worried about what the fuck I'm putting in my body. So yeah, Godzilla. Godzilla, pretty cool. Wish we could have seen him from the deck, but we couldn't. So yeah, this was just this was when we got in. This was at the Narita airport. We flew into Narita. We flew out of Haneda, which I actually like the airport at Narita better. The Haneda one had like all these like bougie shops like Gucci and Louis Vuitton. I'm like, I don't care about this. I want like, you know, cool like Japanese stores. One of my favorite places to shop was the subway malls. So there were like these giant malls attached to some of the stations, and Luminesce was the one that we went to. If you're in Japan, you know what that is. And I spent a lot of money there. So, but here's the good thing about spending money. The exchange rate was massively in our favor. So let's see, we did pretty well in that sense. I feel like we got really lucky. So here we are. This is another little clip. I think you already saw this from Nara, but I'll show you it again because it's really cute. And yeah, so that's like not even completely telling you about the whole trip, but these are just some thoughts off the top of my head. And now it's time for some questions. Yeah, cloned, irradiated. Oh wait, hold on a second here. This is actually important. So this, they called it the hypocenter. I guess you could think of it too as epicenter. This was the exact spot. So 600 meters above that spot that you're seeing, the first atomic bomb used in the history of humankind exploded, which was just like, it was just crazy to like actually see it in person. And you can see all of these cranes, origami cranes on top. Origami cranes were all over the place. Oh, you have a milk tea. Come on and sit next to me. Oh, those aren't the sick shoes. Oh. It's okay.
Here, you got your shoes.
We have almost 1,000 people watching.
Wow.
So,
I gotta scoot in.
There's my furry hat. Okay. Yeah. So wait, hold on a second here.
So what have we talked about?
So I've shown them like 10 minutes of B-roll of various things. I told them about the owls. I told them the places we went. This is actually one of the pairs of shoes that I bought, though I bought a couple. And this is a brand that I've never seen before. You can see kind of the, oh my gosh, why are you out of focus? Oh, there we go. So this is Flower Mountain. And they had all these really cool Japanese designs. So I was telling them I got a lot of swag and a lot of stuff because the exchange rate was massively in our favor.
Yeah.
Like it was even better by the time we left, right? It just kept getting better every day.
Yeah. Well, it keeps on getting better from our perspective and worse from the Japanese perspective. So, I feel for them, and I don't necessarily want to be like, it's a rough situation they're in, but it makes it very easy to travel Japan right now.
It's like we were comparing, we went to New York City for New Year's, and we spent like so much money there compared to Japan.
Probably I'm just guessing here, maybe 3 times as much per day and New York than to go to Japan.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Are you gonna open that?
Yeah. So milk tea.
Yeah, I was telling them like this is my new guilty pleasure.
So good.
It's so good. And we would usually get it in bottles, but the Japanese market here, they only had cans, but we'll take what we can get. Which one of the things that, oh my gosh, it's all in English. What the heck? I've never seen it all in English.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh. So one of the things that really helped us was using the Google Lens. And I had never used that before this trip. We went to Europe and we didn't use that. And basically, it's an app on your phone. You can hold it up to any sort of text that's in Japanese and it'll translate it for you, which was a huge lifesaver, particularly when like using the washing machine in our hotel room.
It was very convenient in niche situations of like washing machine and like certain things like that.
Packaging on food.
Sometimes menus, yeah. And then, but the place is so English friendly though that Subway's like everything's in English.
Yeah, right.
So you're good to go. I think it was it's turned out to be a fairly easy place to travel to after the time zones and everything like that.
Yeah, I'm sure the time zones. So let's see here. Michael wants to know, how far up Mount Fuji did you go? We actually never went directly up to Mount Fuji. So we saw it from a distance. We stayed near one of the lakes there, and we did do this pretty popular hike. That was, I don't know, it was a moderate hike.
Yeah.
But again, we never actually, if you drive around the whole mountain, it's going to take like 2 hours. And so we stayed sort of like from where we left, an hour on the back side of it.
We thought maybe we might climb it. And then the second I saw it, I was like, there's no way in hell we're climbing that thing. And apparently a lot of tourists get themselves in trouble climbing it too if they aren't knowing what they're doing. Like, yeah. I think you got to leave at like midnight in order to get up at a certain time. And then it's all snow covered at top. So we were also too early for the climbing season.
Well, part of the other problem is that for me at least, like my feet were already in like really bad shape at that point. And so it's like, I don't need to like keep pushing myself and maybe get myself in a bad situation. And you get into this weird kind of thing with mountains too, which is like, if you want to see Mount Fuji, you probably don't want to climb it in a weird way. Like you're not going to get the view of the mountain from climbing it, and particularly a mountain like that. And so we kind of just wanted to see the mountain, have a good view of it. So we wanted to climb one of the, let's say, sister peaks of it that, wasn't nearly as high, but it got us a very good view of it. So we have a question for Jonathan. How was that wild roller coaster at Lake Kawaguchi, which was at the Highland theme park? Yeah. Fuji Highland? Surprisingly tame. It was a good coaster, but it was very tame. I was hoping for some like very janky, like wouldn't be legal in the United States type roller coaster, but like you felt safe the whole time, and it was a very unique coaster. Well, it was slow, right?
Yeah, it was fairly slow, but it was very unique the way they did it. Just on how like when you're going up on it and stuff like that, there was like multiple sections to it. So I give them a lot of.
And you start in the dark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it was a very unique coaster though.
But it was a long line.
Yes, it was stupid long.
Long. And I was telling them like I almost feel bad that we got to essentially cut. We paid for it, but like almost every single line in Tokyo. Yeah, but and that I feel bad from the foreigner perspective because it's easier for us to do that because we can use exchange rate to our advantage and all that. But like I have the same view of Disney in America though, which is that like don't go to Disney unless you can afford to do fast passes and Genie Plus. Yeah. Like literally just don't. It's not worth it. And so like, and you're going to be on your phone the whole time planning your day. It's actually like, it's kind of obnoxious. It sucks. It sucks. I mean, like that's the thing with Disney right now. We've been doing some Disney stuff recently. And so, I've had to figure out how Disney works, and each park is different. Each park has its own apps and each park has its own Genie Plus way of doing things. But like the difference in Disney between using your app and doing fast passes, it's not the difference between getting one more ride in a day. It's the difference between having 3 times as many rides. It's a 300% difference. And so you're just going to have to
Disney, you have to have a Disney app in order to use Disney now. And there's something about, I think the magic is destroyed in that.
Yeah. And your phone is almost dead at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Amir wants to know, how are these 7-Eleven and Family Mart stores? They were great. There were hardly any grocery stores. So, and we didn't even go to a grocery store. We basically went to all either restaurants or the like convenience stores.
Yeah, I mean they're excellent, and they're in high abundance. They're
Mhm.
basically everywhere. To almost like a funny point when it's like, oh, we need to go to a Family Mart. Oh, there's literally one that's like right next to us. But I think there's something about because there's not that many grocery stores. We saw a few of them. I think that most people use a Family Mart as a grocery store, so I think there's just more of them.
Mhm.
And everything we got there was excellent, and it's super fast and really clean. And I have only good things to say about 7-Eleven there.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because the other thing in abundance were vending machines. So if you're walking around and you're thirsty, you can get tea, you can get milk tea, you know, all sorts of stuff. There were vending machines everywhere. But on the flip side, there were like no trash cans, like really almost no trash cans at all.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you weren't surprised by that?
Yeah, well, apparently people just say that. It's like one of those travel advices of like, hey, there's not going to be a lot of trash cans. It's not that bad. Like, you will have to hold things for a while. But apparently it had to do with the sarin gas attacks a while ago. And so they removed most public trash cans. And they had a terrorist attack that was pretty bad, I think almost 2 decades ago now, which they hit trash cans on that one. And so apparently they removed those. But it's, that's the thing, is that people are so well cultured to it to where there's no trash. Nobody litters. Everyone just understands that, okay, you hold it till you get the trash can.
Yeah, I feel like people like really followed the rules there.
Yeah.
Which, can't say the same thing for us.
Yeah.
Rough and tough Americans.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I think that there might be something too where they're making the people who do the vending machines put up trash cans. And it's a really smart way to do it, because there's so many vending machines that usually if you find a vending machine, you can find a trash can. And it is like it's ridiculous how many vending machines there are, and it's very nice. Like, you're never like a few feet away from one.
Yeah. Ross wants to know, did we visit the Geisha District in Kyoto?
Nope.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But we did see a lot of girls and boys bars in Tokyo, which was weird, because you expect to have, bars for men where, girls will be in there, and I guess they're like paid to talk to you, but there could be some things off the menu, at least talking to a friend. But it's the same thing if you're a woman and you want to have, hot Japanese men flirt with you and talk to you, you can pay to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the interesting things about it. Was one is like anywhere you go, you barely ever see anything where it's like women pay for men to do something with them. And even if it's like a Chippendales type thing, it's usually kind of out of like a little bit of a funny thing, It's not like the strip clubs in the United States. And the same thing, go to Amsterdam, go to Red Light District, there's no men there, right? It's, I mean, there's all men shopping, but there's no men like selling themselves. And so it's interesting to see that kind of dynamic.
A lot of them too.
Yeah. And it was interesting to see the sexual dynamic about like what people are interested in, because it's like if you go to Europe and you look at the Calvin Klein billboards or whatever the billboards, what you're going to see is what you'd guess of like, oh, okay, that's the ideal like sexy guy, right? 6-pack, whatever. That's the ideal sexy woman. And there's very interesting, because the first country I've gone to where it's like, whoa, this is really flipped, where like the men were like, it was, it's weird to say, but almost like androgynous men is the hot man there.
Yes.
Like very, very skinny.
They had the eye makeup. Yep. I mean, they're kind of looking girly.
Yep. And it's interesting because it's like, no, like, it's not like we're getting lied to in any way about like, that's what they're attracted to. It's like, no, that's what sells. They're like, it's what they're attracted to. Therefore it's what sells. Therefore it's what you see being getting advertised.
Yeah. And
it's the first country I've gone to where I've been really thrown off as far as like, I can probably look at a lineup of guys and say, okay, that's the good looking guy. That isn't. And in that one, it was like, I never would have guessed it. Those guys would not be like on the picture of billboards, you know?
It's very interesting. I did want to see what that was all about.
Yeah, me too. I think my head goes a little worse with it. I think it's prostitution, but maybe they are just doing stripping, and maybe it is just talking. But I doubt it.
I think it's mostly talking.
Maybe.
Well, someone here can maybe inform us, but I mean, that's what our interpreter said.
That's what she said. Yeah.
She lives there.
Yeah, but does she know that? Does she know that district, that side of it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, we're still getting adjusted. I think it's been a harder adjustment coming home. Just in terms of like jet lag and, the time difference. Then girls bars are mostly talking, which I would think the same for men's. So
that's crazy though. Think about going in somewhere to pay an order. That's so interesting.
But like, I don't know. It's just different there.
Yeah.
Huh.
Interesting.
You wouldn't pay to have a girl talk to you?
No, I don't think I would.
By the way, someone said at the beginning of the chat, I'm lucky to have a rich sugar daddy. So I just want to set the record straight and say I did pay for some stuff on the trip.
You did.
And you're not my rich sugar daddy.
Yeah.
It's mostly talking, holding hands.
Wow. Oh, how much fun were the deer? Deer were super cool. I was shocked how cool it was.
Yeah.
I think that in some ways Nara was one of the highlights of the trip.
100%.
And I kind of thought I was going to be like, well, maybe there's deer there in this season and maybe you'll see them around this area. No, there's a shitload of deer. They'll bite you if you don't give them food.
They did.
And they're little bastards, but I loved them all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
There's so much of them to where like there's certain parts where it's like, in order to feed the deer, we wanted to avoid large groups of deer. So we had to find one on their own or else they're going to get swarmed. Mm-hmm. And it's really fun.
We ran from more than one pack of deer.
Yeah. Nara also had in my opinion, my favorite temple there too. So Nara's both best in temple and they have the deer. I think that Nara's like have to go.
I haven't shared that video yet of me not being able. So they had this so you're waiting in line to go through this pillar. They had like a carved out little, very narrow cubby for kids mostly. But I was like, I'll try it. And this guy in front of me, who must have been like 6'4", super skinny, somehow fit through it. He didn't have boobs though. And so I do have a video of me doing it in front of all the people, getting stuck, and everyone laughing at me. So
yeah,
I should share that.
Well, as soon as the guy he was like a spaghetti noodle, right? He was really tall, but he was very skinny. And as soon as he started to struggle to get through it, I was like, I'm not even gonna try this. Yeah. I was like, there's no way this is gonna happen. Yeah.
It was fun to try though. So they were asking me, because I told them about the transit card. They were asking me if I have any regrets or things that I would have done different. I said that we would spend less time in Hiroshima. Mm-hmm. But like other than that, I don't really know. I think that's literally the only thing. It's
tough to say because we would spend less time in Hiroshima. Nothing against Hiroshima. Glad we went. And if we did the trip again, I would still go there. I would just do it for a day trip. And but the thing is, we would pick another place. We'd do Osaka instead of Hiroshima, or we'd do something else, and then we might say, oh, well, we probably should have done this. We should have done something else. So, like, we don't know. I mean, I don't think there was too many regrets. I'm like...
Well, part of it is that there's just not much to do in Hiroshima. Yeah. Once you go to the Peace Museum and you kind of walk around outdoors to the park and you see, the A-bomb dome and stuff, like, other than eating their, like, famous Japanese pancake cabbage thing...
Well, I'm sure it's a big city, so I'm sure there's more that we could find if we were there. Like, one of the things is that there's these islands that are off the coast of it, right? And Hiroshima was beautiful. Our hotel from our room, or view from the hotel room, was gorgeous. And so it's a beautiful city, and the whole A-Dome and the Peace Park is it's gorgeously done. But the big problem with it is that it's not as friendly as far as subways go and stuff like that as other cities. And so when we were looking at it, we're like, okay, well, we have to do this island, right? Because like we keep on hearing this is a great island. There's also a bunny island there, all sorts of cool stuff. And we're like, oh boy, that's going to take us like an hour to get to the ferry. Then we're going to have to do the ferry, which means we have another hour. Then we get to this island, and it's not like Tokyo where everything is open super late.
Right.
Things are kind of closing around 5 on these islands. So it's like we're waking up early. We're doing all this. So it's a little bit harder to get things going. It's not quite as friendly as other places.
Yeah.
You just have to really plan things out. And at that point in the trip, I think that we were both exhausted.
Yeah.
And so we didn't want to do any 8 a.m. wake ups.
No.
And so we kind of recover. I think Hiroshima was kind of a recovery area in some ways.
Yeah. Well, except for that earthquake.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy the earthquake happened. I thought it was an interesting Japanese experience.
God.
Well, I don't think it caused I don't think it caused any damage in Hiroshima. So I would be saying different if actually people died. but as an experience and watching how little everybody cared, like we were like
Except
the
for
only
me.
everybody who was like Japanese there was like, oh yeah, oh there's another earthquake.
Yeah.
And like, you know, just like it was like nothing changed. But then us and some other white people we saw, they were like, oh my God, we need to get out of this, you know, we need to get out of here.
So we were on the 27th floor. So I made him go all the way down every single, you know, level on the stairs to get out. I was tripping. I was really tripping.
I think the other white people were more dumb though. They were like, oh, we think we need to get out of the hotel. So let's take the elevator down. Like the last place I would want to be.
What was interesting about the earthquake is that we both got this alert, which I'd never heard that earthquake noise, like the alert on the iPhone before, 30 seconds before the actual earthquake happened. It was like, it's always after the fact that like, oh, there was just an earthquake. It was very strange.
I've never gotten a preemptive earthquake alert, and it was just you know, our phones aren't Japanese phones, so it just knew we were in the area. The cell towers hit everyone. And it was enough to where, like, you know, if you're on a ladder and you got that alert, you're going to get off the ladder. Like, it's a very good alert system. So props to them.
So Amir wants to know, you went to see the macaque monkeys. If so, how was that experience? Very cool. A very steep hike just to get to the monkey park. It was.
Yep.
And the monkeys are walking around at your feet. There's a place that you can feed them where there is sort of like a fence or, you know, a barrier between you, but other than that, they're like literally walking around by your feet, and it's kind of scary a little bit.
It is scary. Monkeys, I love monkeys. You know, I love monkeys. Monkeys scare the shit out of me. I've had to deal with some monkeys in China that were like truly like true assholes, and you know, like they would steal your car keys and like they would put it up on like the top of a tree and just watch you, and like, you know, you can't do anything about it. And like these monkeys were pretty domesticated and they were pretty chill. I didn't see them bite anybody, and the monkeys I went to in China, they were biting everybody around them. So like, yeah, everyone had to get rabies shots. But like, so these were like very domesticated. They were very cool, and it was, again, that's another highlight. Like Kyoto was very cool.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about Kyoto is that the train system's so good. Like that's the thing, you can do Hiroshima from Kyoto if you wake up early and just do a day trip there. Osaka's a day trip, Nara's a day trip.
Yeah.
There's tons of day trips,
You
and
have
it's all
to do
kind of.
Nara.
I think Kyoto is just really well centralized and a really good location.
So K10, thanks for watching, wants to know, did you go to an onsen? I actually think we technically didn't.
Yeah, technically we did.
We did. So we had a very nice room in Mount Fuji that had, you know, its own private bath basically and view of the lake. And then they had a private hot tub essentially that I thought was an onsen, but it maybe had the natural water.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I think someone called it an ofuro, but it wasn't like the big hot spring pools.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things that go on, like when I think of onsen, ours didn't have the things I think it needs to be an onsen. It was just like a private jacuzzi. And I like, when I think of onsen, it's you have to get naked in front of strangers. It's gonna be separated by sex, and it's gonna have to use actual geothermal water in order. Like those are, so we didn't. I don't think it hit those criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we wanted to share the experience together.
It was cute. Yeah.
We could have done the. I did peek into the women's onsen, and they like immediately looked at me, but there were a lot of naked women in there. Lee on X wants to know, is there anything about Japan that you were wrong about now that you've been there? Wrong about.
I have a few.
I thought that I was gonna love the sushi there, and I know I'm gonna maybe get canceled by some people. I did not like the sushi because I'm a fat American and it wasn't Western enough for me. There was no cream cheese. There was no crazy glazes. It was all authentic, but not super unhealthy. And also not, I don't know. There weren't even a lot of like rolls, you know, it was mostly like nigiri. And so we ate a lot more noodles than we did sushi.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think there's some things I'm wrong about things I just wasn't expecting. Wasn't expecting to be as cheap as it was. I wasn't, and then I also didn't think I didn't know they have great food, like any type of food. Some of the best Italian we've had, some of the best. I love the Indian we had.
You love the Mexican.
I love the Mexican we had. I didn't know that they were good in all types of foods.
Right.
And to the point to where it's better than, and that's why I said it's always one of the good things about the United States is that, like, yes, Italy has better Italian food, but like right now we can choose to go to Indian, Japanese, sushi. We get there's so many options within a little bit of a window. America's the only country I've known that really do that, where it's like there's so many different types of food, and if you look at what I eat in a week, it's like 7 different food genres, complete genres from different like continents. But Japan is, I think, actually like that.
Yeah.
They have a high amount of density of different types of foods all around, Greek food, Italian food, all that stuff.
If you go to Japan, you should definitely, like, if you like Italian food, try an Italian place. My friend Ryan Tanaka says that it's the best Italian food he's ever had as well in Japan. So I don't think that we're alone on that one.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Has our trip influenced how we'll live now that we're back home? I think other than buying some milk teas and maybe being better about taking off our shoes. I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, actually.
I might wear some more crazy outfits, but...
Yeah. I mean, it might make it so we never go to Disney again in America.
Yeah. Disney in America sucks.
It completely ruined it. And like this, I don't want to be a Disney boy, but Beauty and the Beast is the best ride I've ever been on. I can't believe how good it is. Mm-hmm. And like I was thinking about it like today again, and I was like, that's probably gonna be the only time in my life I'm gonna go on that ride. And I was like, what a shame. And I've never felt that about a ride before.
Not necessarily.
Maybe we might
take
go back.
Our kids.
We might go back. That's true.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's so good, and it's one of those things. After Disney Tokyo, Disney, every other Disney sucks. And I just don't know. It's like one of those things where I think about like, oh, maybe we should go to Disney if we go to Orlando again because it's by NASA. But I'm like, I'm just gonna be pissed. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna be pissed about it.
Mm-hmm. It is a bummer. Yeah, Japan is very clean. Did we visit an art museum?
Yeah, we did do that one in Kyoto.
Yeah.
It was very, very random, very small, but they had like a Van Gogh. They had
quite a few Van Gogh. They had some, was it Picasso?
Yeah.
It was Picasso, right?
Yeah, a lot of Picassos. And then we did that one. We did the one in, it was Kyoto, I think. Wait, I can't remember. There's one other museum we did with all the samurai swords and all the Japanese art.
Here's a question. Would you consider living in and working live streaming from Japan for long periods of time every now and then? I think I would love to live there.
100%.
Like, not permanently, but if we had the opportunity, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I think out of like the places I have been, I think that Japan is at like the top of my list of places I'd be willing to do it.
Same.
I would rather do a year in Japan, particularly Tokyo, than do a year in Italy, any city. And that includes Germany, that includes Spain, or that includes
100%.
There's very few places I've been to where I might have to consider it higher than that.
Well, and like when we talked about this on the live stream before we went, I was kind of like freaked out that you like said that. I was like, that's crazy. And now that I've been to Japan, I'm like, no, I'd do it.
Yeah.
It was well worth it. I guess the question is like, would we actively try to make that happen? I don't know. I mean, I've always had the idea of like, you just say yes to opportunities that come up and then you'll start doing a lot of those things. But I don't know if I'll push for it to happen necessarily. Mm-hmm. And, it's a difficult one because I always like going places that are new, but I really want to go back there. That's why I said, like, I think we will go back to Japan, but I would like to do it like we go to South Korea, then we travel to Tokyo. Or like we go to, someplace around that region, then we go there. Well, here's a question for you too. One of my followers on X said that his family stopped in Hawaii on the way. And I'm like, that would have been really nice to like break up the flight and like do Hawaii.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, I'd be willing to do it.
Don't you think that, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, to me, the benefit of that isn't the breaking up the flight. The benefit of that is that you go somewhere else. And that's kind of been my issue. I said with you, like, I love Hawaii, but it's really hard to travel to. And if you're doing that long of travel, fuck it and just go to Japan. Mm-hmm. Just take it all away. And that's one of the things I think about too, is let's say we did 2-week vacation. We're thinking week Hawaii, week Japan. I'd be like, shit, can we just do a week, can we forego Hawaii instead of do a week South Korea? Or instead do a week, in, I don't know, anywhere like, even like the Thailands, the Vietnams, the Philippines, places like that.
Yeah. K10 wants to know Thailand next.
Yeah, I would love to do Thailand. That's one of my top spots right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard
You've never been, right?
No.
Yeah.
I've heard great things across the board. I've heard great things about Vietnam too, and I would love to do Singapore. So there's a lot of stuff around that area, and the exchange rate is so beneficial to Americans right now that like if you can bust out something in the next 2 years, it's going to be one of the best times to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. But I'm really glad that we had as much time there as we did, particularly because I don't know, for me, like the whole time zone thing, it's really hard to adjust. Yeah. It wasn't as hard getting there, but coming back has kind of like sucked.
It's been pretty brutal, actually, surprisingly.
Yeah. Like I was telling them, it's really kind of thrown me out of whack. And so we traveled 26 hours. We were awake to get home. And then we basically slept in until 10 p.m. Japan time, which I've never, ever slept in until 10 p.m.
Yep.
That's so bad for your body. So yeah, that I'm glad that we got to
there's something about going that way on the time zones instead of going there. It's just a harder switch.
Glenn says, have you shown him how to start a podcast? He'd be good on his own show.
Did I do it? I talk about fucking movies and Disney.
Why can't we do it together?
Okay. We'll do it together. It's just gonna be movies and Disney.
I do like hearing him talk. That's why I moved in with him.
Sweet.
But Jonathan's like very into movies, so he's
autistically into movies.
This is true.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. We're watching Baby Reindeer right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Number 1 streaming on Netflix.
Yeah.
Excited to see where that goes.
Right.
Yeah, Ross says he thinks we'll enjoy Southeast Asia.
And you told him about the person we ended up meeting there?
A little bit. So this woman, Takai, which she goes by Takai in space on X, because she said that she liked my name Ellie in space, and so did Takai in space. She lives in Kobe, which is, I guess, kind of near Kyoto. And she was like, hey, I'd like to, meet up with you. And that was when we had left Kyoto. So she ended up taking the train to see us in Tokyo. And I was kind of nervous about it just because, like, I don't know, she's online. I haven't met her. Like, what if she's a different person? And she ended up being super nice, super good at English. I was surprised because she said she was using ChatGPT for responding to me. And I'm like, dude, your English is amazing. She lived in the United States for close to 20 years. She did some interpretation work for movies in Hollywood. And then she's a space fan. And so I have an interview with her that I'm almost done editing. So hopefully you guys like it.
That was super cool.
Yeah.
She was awesome. And it was very cool. You kind of didn't even realize it until we were in it. We're like, wow, this is the first conversation we've had with anybody outside of ourselves.
Right.
And it was very interesting hearing her perspective on everything. It's very nice. And she took the train down, it's a big deal. I mean, that still costs a lot of money and takes a lot of travel to do that. But that's another thing too with our train system is that I thought that the train system in Japan was going to be like the train system in Europe, which means it's pretty good. It's not even close. Japan's is so much better than Europe's that there is no other country I've been to that's even a close second. Mm-hmm. Everything is excellent about it, from the metros to the way you pay for them, to the bullet trains. And like, that's what we didn't understand. It was like, ours like used to Europe where it's kind of like, okay, let's buy a ticket because we need to go from one city to another city. So let's buy one on the bullet train. And then I was reading some other advice and people were like, why are you pre-buying it? It's like, I didn't understand that the bullet trains there weren't like, oh, there's 2 a day. There's one every 20 minutes. And it's never 1 minute late. And if there is, they'll give you a huge warning about it. Like 1 minute late. It's the cultural thing. It's
crazy. And even Takai was saying that, like, that they apologize if it's, they're like super like embarrassed if it's like 1 or 2 minutes late. And didn't she say that there was a snake on one of them, that you got a notification that there was a delay?
Yeah, there's a snake, and so they took it out of commission. The driver or whatever, or the conductor or whatever, he gave a big public apology. That's the thing, is it's not like, I think in Europe they still have this thing where it's like, it's a good way to get around. I think in Japan it's much more cultural. They're very proud of them. And so there's all those things about, don't eat on the metro and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's more than just a way to get around. It's like, it's a point of cultural pride, and they should be proud of it.
Right.
It's incredible what they've been able to achieve.
Well, and it was interesting to see the amount of like young kids, maybe 6 years old or 7 by themselves traveling.
That's crazy.
Couldn't do that here.
I think that's the thing is the social cohesion it's off the charts there. It is unlike any place I've ever been. I think America, as far as a developed country, is very rough around the edges. You don't really know if someone's, if someone's crazy or not. There, it's like, and that's one of the reasons I was okay with meeting that lady. I was like, if she's anything like anybody else we met, she's totally cool, super awesome person, and very nice. And it's like, yeah, you see, kids, they look like as young as like 7 and 5, traveling in their school uniforms on these subways all across Tokyo, one of the largest cities in the world. And it's like, they're just completely okay with doing it, and everyone's okay with doing it, and it seems appropriate. And it is, like I told you, it's like, I think that if you did that in New York and you told your 5-year-old to go and ride a subway, I think you would actually have criminal charges brought against you.
Yeah.
I think it's illegal to do that. And rightfully so, because you'd have to be fucking crazy to do that. I don't like riding New York subways when it's late at night alone.
Yeah.
So it's so there's a lot of beautiful things about that country.
And I feel like we've already had a little bit of like reverse culture shock today, or no, on 2 days ago, and they were out of the sauce that Jonathan usually likes on a sandwich. And instead of being like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we're out of it," they're like, "We don't have it. What do you want?" And it's just like everyone's like so like cheerful and like, very apologetic or polite in Japan. And I'm like, man, our customer service is a little different in America.
Yeah. And that's what I said about Disney is that, and this is what people have said, this, like, I kind of find you back up, but it makes sense where like apparently internally Disney is not crazy about the deal they made with Japan. And part of the reason why is because it sets an unreasonable expectation for what Disneyland can be.
Talk about the deal, because I was telling them a little bit. Oriental Land Company is what
Oriental Land Company owns Disney and Tokyo, and so Disneyland does not own Disney Corporation does not own any of it. It is the only structure they have that is like this. I think they bought out Paris completely, and so Disney actually owns that one. And so, but they license the IP from Disney, and they use the Disney Imagineers to come up with things. And so it's one of the only kind of Disney things that is operated outside of Disney Corporation. And apparently Disney isn't super crazy about it right now because they say it sets an unreasonable expectation for how these parks can be. And the other thing too is when they first did it, they did it as a beta test to see if they could do foreign Disneys, and it worked tremendously well. So then they started to do other ones, and it turns out Japan is just different than everywhere else. And so anyways, what I say about it is the reason it's so much different is because every single individual employee cares to a level you just cannot motivate someone in the United States. I've always thought Disney employees in the United States have been very good, but they're nothing like the level of enthusiasm you get at Disney Tokyo, where like it's a weird magic feel. Like everyone's constantly waving at you, and you actually feel like they are happy to see you, which I know that maybe they are. I don't know. It's like Disney magic. I'm like brainwashed.
Well, that's why I asked Takai. I was like, are these people actually really happy? Because like they seem really happy, but like, are they?
Right.
I don't know. But it was interesting too talking to her because we were like, oh my God, Japan's amazing. I wish we could live here. I don't want to leave. They do everything better than the US, blah, blah, blah. But we asked her like, if you could go back to America, and stay, would you? And she said in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And she would stay.
Yeah.
And I said, why? And she's like, because you're more free. She feels boxed in. She feels pressured by societal standards there. And so it's like,
and that's interesting. That's fascinating that like, because it's like, I didn't think about that, where it's like, yes, America has these freedoms that are like ingrained in the Constitution and Bill of Rights, but it's like she wasn't talking about that. She was talking about the cultural freedoms and like just little things you don't even think about, like the idea of like, I'm gonna have kids and I'm gonna go back to work. In the United States, like that happens a lot where everyone's like, no, you're housewife now. Like you've had a kid, you're housewife. That's how it works. Or like the idea of like you go into a college. I remember when I was in college, I'd see like these 70-year-olds in college with me. Just like one 70-year-old sitting there, and I was like, good for you. It's like, oh no, that's not really culturally acceptable. Like that's because it's not culturally acceptable. It's not okay to do it. And I do think there's a level of freedom here culturally where we kind of like we're into sort of people moving fast and breaking things. Sort of like it's almost like a punk rock type deal. And I think that there is more cultural constraints there, which is interesting that she would say that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I get that. I get how that is culturally constraining. So
she's going back to school for space ethics, and she just said that like, she's kind of getting judged because she's so old,
Right.
Which I'm not sure how old she is, but I think she actually looks a lot younger than
I think she looks crazy young. Yeah, she looked great.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. It was like, I don't know, it was weird because I was really nervous about it, but then we just like peppered her with so many questions because at that point we'd been there for over 2 weeks and had all these questions, but no one spoke enough English to like really have a conversation. So
Yes. That said, I was shocked how well people could speak English there, though.
that's what I told them. Yeah.
Yeah. In China, like I was in China for a while, people legitimately could not speak almost any English. And in Japan, almost everybody knew enough to kind of get around. I was very impressed with it. I mean, I think they could speak English better than Americans can speak Spanish, generally speaking.
Yeah. It's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
Well, we for sure want to go back. Think we got to get going, but thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and I will still be releasing some videos that I edit about this. So thank you for watching. Arigato.
Yeah, we
That's the extent of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, talk to you guys soon.